This is Dr. Lewis. Catch my show, The Dr. Fred Lewis Show, every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. You'll be able to hear news and views, and we want to hear from you. Log in on Saturdays in the Gray Stream, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Good morning. Glad to be back with you again. We've been discussing voting and voting rights. We've discussed the situation here in Texas where the members of the Texas legislature, both black, white, and brown, had to flee the state to go to get some help in Congress. It makes you want to ask a question. What's going on? Well, what's going on is basically simple. There's an evil cabal of individuals who don't want you to vote. Here's what they want, okay? They want to continue to be able to choose their voters rather than the voters choose them. Yeah, that's one of the things they want. But their preference is to make sure that they make it as difficult or they eliminate black and brown people voting. Yeah, you heard me. I didn't stutter. I said that's what they want. They want to eliminate black and brown voters because they want to serve their own selfish images, their interest, or serve just the rich and the powerful. Bottom line. Now, coming up, I believe it's on Tuesday, September the 28th is a very important day in this country. It is actually National Voter Registration Day. Now, if you don't register to vote, you can't vote. But if you're already registered, we want you to make sure you update your voter registration. You know, when you go to the polls, if you don't have that voter registration card or some other form of identification, they may not let you have your vote. You may not be able to vote. So make sure that you keep your voter registration up to date. It's very, very important. Now, speaking directly to the faith community, the ministers, the pastors, all members of the clergy, okay, you have to make sure that you vote and you tell your members to vote. And I was at a ministerial function one time, and, you know, this was during the Tea Party days, TEA, okay? And the pastor who was preaching that day, he gave a definition of what T was, TEA. Take everything away, TEA. Now, we know from time to time the acronyms and things of that nature will change, but the basic truth is this. There are a group of individuals, I call them the evil cabal, who don't want you to exercise your rights as a citizen, and truthfully, if they had their way, they'd take away all your rights, okay? So you make sure that you and your parishioners or church members or whatever definition you give them, you make sure that they are registered to vote. Now, this last week or so has been, I would say, a week that we will never forget, okay? It's a week that we shall never forget. Here in Texas, the governor signed the abortion law, the new Texas restrictive abortion law. But let me share with you, many of the people who live here in Dallas, they remember a district attorney by the name of Wade. Wade was the DA here, and he is the DA in the famous case Roe versus Wade. You can find that and look it up under 40 U.S. Code 113, 1973. You know, under the current version of the abortion law here in Texas, don't believe what people tell you. A woman does not have the right to control her own body. She cannot make a decision as to have an abortion, yea or nay. Even in a situation where she has been raped. Think about that. Or in a situation of incest. You know, where are we going in time? Are we going forward in time? Or are we going back in time? You know, once upon a time there was a situation where women couldn't vote until the 1920s. And even then, in the 1920s, at the Women's March on Washington, D.C., black women were denied the ability to participate in that march. You just have to call it like it is, okay? Before that, women were considered property. Yes, I did say that. Women were considered property, her husband's property. She had to have her husband's permission to do almost anything. Okay? To me, it sounds just utterly ridiculous that in 2021, we are still fighting a battle regarding a woman's right to choose that was settled law in 1973. Now, we're approaching 50 years, okay? However, the truth of the matter is that the issue of abortion and women's rights to choose has never, how would you say, been put on the back burner. In every presidential election, every time a person is nominated to the Supreme Court, the various interest groups out there want to find out what is their position on a woman's right to choose. They phrase it this way. Are you pro-life? Or are you pro-choice? Are you for or against abortion? No matter how they bring it up, no matter what you say and what the law says, they have continually, almost 50 years now, approaching 50 years, they want to change the decision of Roe versus Wade. Okay? What do you think about it, okay? Why don't you let us know, how you feel about it? We encourage people to call in. We encourage people to, email us. The problem is this, okay? Us guys, unless I can be proven wrong, I have not met a man yet that is or has the ability to get pregnant. Now, if you have, yeah, please let me know, okay? But I have seen some men utter on ridiculous grounds, on religious grounds, on legal grounds, that a woman should, regardless of the situation, never have an abortion. Well, that's kind of convenient, right? Even if a woman has been raped, some of these people want to make sure that she has to have that child. That child has to be brought to full term and born, okay? Now, I know a lot of you pastors are out there, and I'm going to share an item with you that you know from whence I speak, okay? Being a pastor and in this modern day and age, you come to know people, women, you come to know those and some women who have been raped. You come to know some women who have had an abortion. And you recognize two things about it, okay? There's a scar. There's an emotional scar. There's damage there that never goes away. That woman never forgets that rape. The woman never forgets having the abortion. But I get upset sometimes when people seem to want to articulate that women just go out and get pregnant and they just want to have an abortion willy-nilly, for lack of a better term, just for the sake of it. Nothing is further than the truth. To me, in my experience as a pastor, I've never seen a situation where a woman who's had an abortion has done it gleefully. Nor have I seen a woman who has been raped ever forget that trying drama and dramatic and scarful situation. You know, sometimes, if you listen to the news media, and now even on social media, you will hear some of the most ridiculous things that you've ever heard in your life. But to force, by law, a woman to have a child of a rapist, it's just flat out wrong. I don't care what the governor says. Now, what you got to look at it this way. When a person is pro-life, I can respect that. But being pro-life with no exceptions whatsoever, oh no. When a person is pro-choice, I can respect that. Okay? Now, I want the guys to understand something here, okay? And I believe this is one of the closest ways that I can get a male person to understand where I'm coming from. Lost my Twitter feed. The situation is this. When a man becomes so pious that he feels that a woman who has been raped should have the child of her rapist, and a lot of times they get a little adamant about it, you know. They get this righteous attitude. That's wrong. They can only relate to a situation whereby they have control. But let me put it to you this way. How many men out there have known a man who has been raped? I know it happens. It's not something that is normal, but sometimes it happens. You find yourself in a situation where the rapist or the individual who was raped was a police officer who was disarmed. Those situations actually happen. But does it have to get to that point for you to fully understand the trauma and the damage, both physical and emotional? Talking to the guys out there, and they should all understand one thing. No one should be raped. No one should find themselves, and no woman should find herself in a position where she has to have the child of her rapist. Now, that's just where I'm coming from. And I believe that. The thing that I see going on today in American society that is so surprising and actually detrimental to American society is the fact that you have a raging war going on when you are talking about a woman's right to choose. There's no other phrase or definition out there. A woman's right to choose. And by ongoing war, approaching 50 years, since 1973, you know, we've got maybe 2 more years, slightly less than that. But there's been a raging war where abortion clinics have been attacked. Medical doctors and medical professionals have been attacked for doing abortions. Well, let me share with you what was going on before 1973. Knowing persons who have gone through abortions prior to 1973, I can tell you, back alley, upstairs, over a flat, a shanty, or any other situation like that, abortions were performed by non-medical personnel. Okay? Many women died due to the fact they had an abortion, and it was not a medical doctor or medical personnel actually performing that abortion. I mean, it was done in the alleys, the back alleys, in the shadows, or how would you say, on the side roads of life. That's not right. And it was done secretly But it seemed wrong in 1973, and I believe it's wrong today. I think a woman who chooses to have an abortion should be able to have that abortion performed by a medical doctor. Now, that's just the way it should be. But here again, we find ourselves at that crossroad, and I do believe it is a crossroad between religion, sex, and politics. Okay? Now, when I was growing up, you weren't supposed to talk about religion, sex, and politics. But times have changed. When I was growing up, you weren't supposed to talk about race. But times have changed. But yet, have they changed greatly? No. There are people now who want to deny the awful history of race in this country. They want to sweep it under the rug. 100 years ago, Oklahoma City and other cities were burned down in race riots by white mobs. You know, I can stand the truth, okay? Can you? Can you stand the truth? I think we all should be given access to what really happened in American history. And furthermore, I think we'd all be better for it, okay? You know, there are no angels, okay? Let's face it. This country has made a lot of mistakes and done some very bad things, but yet we must continue to go forward and not go backwards. But it's easy for some people to want to go backwards. It's easy for some people who want to sweep everything under the rug. You know, turn a blind eye to things that are happening, that are currently happening in their town, their city, their village, and their state. Or they don't want to hear about the misdeeds of their elected officials when it comes to issues of sexual discrimination and harassment, or racial discrimination and harassment. You know, I think that there's got to be a way at some point in time that we have a national reconciliation. A national reconciliation. But I submit to you that you can't have a national reconciliation on race or sexual matters without, first of all, knowing the truth and the full truth. Okay? Look back over your footsteps. Look back over where we have come in the last 40 years. And what you will see is a lot of improvement, but yet the struggle continues. There's still a lot of things and a long way for us to go. You know, we have to face the fact that everything is not okay in this country. Too many things still are determined on what? Too many things are determined on the base of race. Even up until today, yesterday, day before. I'd like to point out to you that, we have a crisis at the border. And this particular crisis is involving citizens from Haiti. And the images that appeared on my TV screen, your TV screen, were shocking to many people in the country, but I have to admit I was not surprised. To see Haitians, individuals, people homeless, and for all practical purposes, due to what's going on in Haiti, almost stateless. In other words, they have a country, but then again, they don't have a country, because whether or not the government of that country is actually functioning after the president of Haiti has been assassinated, it's up in air. But to see individuals, to see human beings treated like cattle, herded. Yeah, Border Patrol people on horses, using horses to direct and misdirect human beings. Did it surprise you? Ask anyone with a background in civil rights and they will tell you they weren't surprised. Many people were outraged that this was being done to human beings. You don't have to believe me. Go look at the newsreels. Watch the nightly news or the evening news. They're going to run those stories again. And it's true. You can believe your eyes. The other thing that I really think that we have to recognize in this country is that we have to recognize the pattern of racial discrimination in this country. While it has improved, but it has not gone away. Now, the young generation coming up, they have a big job to do, okay? Because what my generation did not do, that unfinished work, is going to be left for them. And believe me, they have a big job ahead of them, because we have too many people in this country who are living in a sense of denial when it comes to race and racism in America. Now we find ourselves with a new set of vaccines that are necessary. Those who are 65 and older are subject to have weakened immune systems, are going to be asked to get a third shot. Well, we haven't had everybody in the country get the first shot or the second shot, depending on whether it's Pfizer or Moderna, whichever vaccine you took. But there are some understanding situations, because not too long ago, especially in the black community, African Americans were duped, sharecroppers, into taking treatments in, I believe they call it the Tuskegee study, whereby they were injected with the disease of syphilis, being lied to and told that they were being treated, but they were injected over and over again until they died. That's an evil thing. But it was done under the authority and the auspices of the U.S. Public Health Service. Now, I can understand a person's reluctance to take a shot based on that particular circumstance. However, this is a new day and a new era. And lo and behold, I don't believe either the public sector or the private sector would be able to get away with mass murder. And that's what that was. The Tuskegee study was, in effect, mass murder. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to just lay back and let violent confrontations determine what direction we go into? Are we going to allow the politicians and the policymakers and the BS order? Yeah, you got a lot of BS going on out there, okay? People who are just flagrantly lying through their teeth about anything and everything, from the presidential election to the COVID virus. Yeah. I'll never forget, we had a president who uttered those words of, in essence, drinking bleach. Well, heck, you go ahead and drink bleach. I'm not going to drink bleach. And the lies have gotten just outrageous. Gargle with this, or inhale hydrogen peroxide. I mean, what's going on? Are these people crazy? I think there's a good chance that they are. But that does not mean that you and I should go and follow blindly people who have no medical background whatsoever, people who have, how would you say, minds that are warped or wacky. What we have to do is use common sense. It's not difficult. Who ever heard of taking medical advice from a politician? Does that really make sense to you? taking medical advice from a politician. I don't know what the deal is. Twitter feed is down again, but maybe I'm telling too much of the truth over Twitter. Okay? Maybe my Twitter feed is being deliberately cut off. But understand what I am trying to say. I am trying to say, don't be a fool. Huh? Let me ask you something, okay? Now, they tell me this can be done. I have never seen it done, nor would I do it myself, okay? They tell me that you can operate on yourself. You don't need no surgeon. I read that somewhere, and I think I immediately threw that book away. But they say you can operate on yourself. All right, guys, you guys are big and strong and everything. Here's what I want you to do. Think about it. Answer this question. You have a hernia. Huh? Are you going to operate on yourself? Well, go ahead and try it. Question is, and the answer is no, I wouldn't be trying to operate on myself. Well, why try to be a medical doctor and listen to all these quacks out here in the world? You can go on any social media platform you want, and you'll find some crazy stuff out there, okay? That any individual with common sense would know is a bunch of foolishness. Think about that. If there's anybody out there who would operate on themselves, have them call our call-in number. It's on the screen. I want to hear this. Okay? Well, I'll put it to you this way. Medical doctors, medical professionals, they go to school and they are trained to do whatever their specialty is. Politicians, well, there's good and there's bad. But I'll put it to you this way. Do you think I would have a politician write out a prescription for me? Huh? Tell you what, I'll give you a real life example, all right? Could you see me going up to Ted Cruz and have him write out a prescription for me? Yeah, the same guy who went to Cancun when people were freezing here in Texas. You think I'd ask him to write out a prescription for me? He probably. I think I have an idea what he would write down, okay? Something to the effect of, why don't you just disappear? Or just haul off and die or something like that. But then again, we have people taking medical advice from politicians who are not doctors, but they're giving medical advice without a license to practice medicine. Yeah. What's going on in the country? Have you ever asked yourself that question recently? What's going on? Hmm? I think you may want to start asking what's going on. And I think you also want to make sure that you vote again and again and again in every election, local, state, and national. Vote every time you get an opportunity to vote, because your life may well depend on it. Because we got some wacky people either in public office or seeking public office as we speak. We do. Now, not meaning any harm, but that's a fact. We have people in public office right now, today, who have mental problems. The question is, how did they get so far and how did they get so high up? Think about it. Give yourself sometimes, give yourself 5 minutes and go through your contact list. Back in the day, it would be a Rolodex. And how many people in your contact list should you put a question mark behind their name as to whether or not they're sane or not? I don't believe that there's anyone in this country who can go through their contact list and not list at least 5 people who they have doubts about their mental capacity. Well, I'll just be out front. How many crazy people do you know? Okay? Think about it. And I'm not making fun of people with mental illness. But I do know that a lot of the people that are on air, either social media and or network television, need their head examined. You know? For some of the things that people will say, do, and believe, it defies logic. Most people in this country basically want essentially the same thing. A nice roof, a nice job, a nice family setting, the ability to travel and do other things of a social nature with the freedom to do so. This is no rocket science at all. People want to live a decent life. But the truth of the matter is, in 2021, I would venture to say that we have more people living under bridges and on the streets of America than we had in 1939, the time period of the Great Depression. I would venture to say that. You see, life can be cruel. sometimes individuals going through life, their life experience, they run up against a brick wall and they experience something that just basically destroys them mentally, physically, emotionally. But now we have to pay the piper. We have to live up and do the right thing, but also make sure that you vote so you have control over your life. Next week, we're going to talk again about voting. I want you to remember now that September 28th is National Voting Day, National Voting Registration Day. Make sure that you're registered to vote. Until next week, bye. This is Dr. Lewis. Catch my show, The Dr. Fred Lewis Show, every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. You'll be able to hear news and views, and we want to hear from you. Log in on Saturday